Good morning, guys, or good afternoon, whether you're joining me from the present or the future. Welcome back to another FutureFight Vanguard video. Welcome back to another FutureFight, guys. I decided to do a second round of FutureFights for V-EB07 since there's not really a lot going on, in my opinion, in the Vanguard community right now. I will be making FutureFights pretty soon for the new Champions of Asia circuit set. I don't really remember what the set is called, but it's basically the set that has Aquaforce, Dimension Police, and what's the third one? I'm forgetting. It might be like Mega Colony or something like that. But anyways, yeah, I'm going to be making some FutureFights on those decks pretty soon, so stay tuned for those. But I'm going to give you guys two more FutureFights from V-EB07. So the first FutureFight that I'll be talking about today will be the V-EB07 Blademaster deck. I know a lot of you guys have been looking forward to this deck. It has a lot of good field control. It has a pretty interesting new mechanic built into it as well. So we're going to get right into it. But before we do, be sure to check out all the other social medias of the channel, Facebook, the Reddit page, and be sure to check out Patreon if you guys are interested in more Cardfight Empire exclusive content. But with that being said, let's get right into the deck. So basically, no G zones because, you know, this is not premium. I will be, for the Patreon people, probably uploading a, like a FutureFight of premium. Like, I'll start doing like premium versions of the decks that I cover. So definitely be on the lookout for that. Right now it's just like tournaments, decks, deck lists, all that stuff. But definitely look forward to that in the future. But let's start off with our deck. So first we have 4 Dragonic Blademaster. Let's talk about its 2 Vanguard skills. So first you have Force. I think that this deck works better with, I believe it's Force 2, if I'm not mistaken. Force 1 is good under certain scenarios too, because these cards don't get that big by nature. But it is pretty good to use Force 2 as well because it forces your opponent into a spot where they have to guard like your Vision Token and Dragonic Blademaster. Dragonic Blademaster will have like so many crits, like 3 crits or whatever if its first skill is active. So very good to pressure your opponent out of the game and damage control them as well. But like Dragonic Blademaster's first ability is if your opponent has no rear guards, then this unit gets plus 5,000 power and a critical. So basically if you clear their board, which is pretty easy to do in this deck by using just Blademaster himself, then you can clear their board pretty easily. But you also have a bunch of other cards that destroy units like Berserk Dragon, you have Burnout, and stuff like that as well. Burnout, of course, stays on the field like forever as long as your opponent doesn't destroy it or attack it, and it can just keep recycling and keep burning your opponent's units, which is pretty good. Then its Act Vanguard skill is once per turn. If you have a Wyvern Strike Doha and a Wyvern Strike Garen on your rearguard circle, then you Soul Blast 1 grade 3, discard 2 cards from your hand, retire all your opponent's rearguards, and then call a Vision Token, a rearguard circle, and at the end of the turn, retire the Vision Token. The Vision Token is grade 3 with 13k power and plus 1 critical. A critical 1, which means that it deals 1 damage, and it can twin drive. So pretty interesting is that you can like fill up a board for not using many cards in your hand. Like you can basically use Blademaster skill, or you can call a Doha first. The good thing about Doha is that calling Doha calls Garen by cost of counterboss 1. So you call a Doha, you can get a Garen, and then you just use Blademaster skill, assuming that it's your second grade 3 ride. Or later, you're able to retire your opponent's whole board, discard 2, and then call a Vision Token, which will be getting twin drive, so it'll be getting your discard 2 back as a cost. So you're not really minusing, you're giving more offensive pressure to your deck, but then you're also plussing at the same time in some scenarios depending on what triggers you check. Moving on to our next grade 3, we have 4 Shine Bardichi Dragon, Cardi B Dragon. Shine Bardichi Dragon. It has a Vanguard and rearguard ability as well as Force. So when it's placed, this is kind of like your first ideal ride if you don't get Dragonic Overlord, the one that we run in this deck. But this is your first ideal ride because it actually sets you up for the rest of the game by searching out for Blademasters. So when it's placed, you can Soul Blast 1, look at the top 7 cards of your deck, reveal up to 1 Dragonic Blademaster from among them, put into your hand, shuffle your deck, and this unit gets plus 5,000 power until the end of the turn. So the power is usually not that much of a deal unless your opponent is somehow a higher base power than you, but being a higher base power than 13 is not very likely, especially when you go to ride this card. At that point in the game, they shouldn't be higher than 13 base power. So the power doesn't really matter except for changing a guard stage for your opponent to block, especially if you're on if you have Force 2 on your Vanguard. I guess it is does matter a little bit more for them to block it, but it does search out a Dragonic Blademaster and give a little pressure to your opponent at the same time. Then we have 1 Dragonic Overlord. Obviously, we've gone over this card a bunch of times in all the different Kagura builds, but we'll do it one more time. So we have an Act Vanguard Rearguard ability that's once per turn, which means during the main phase you can Soul Blast 1, and this unit gets plus 10,000 power until the end of the turn. So you can make it a little bit bigger. It really helps with the pump of the restand of its skill. The second ability is on Vanguard Circle. When its attack hits, counterboss 1, discard 2 cards from your hand, stand this unit, and it gets drive -1. So good pressure to your opponent if you're able to ride it first. If not, just ride Bardichi Dragon, yeah, then just ride Blademaster for like the rest of the game if you can. Moving on to our grade 2s, we have 4 Berserk Dragon, always been a staple in Kagero. This card, when placed on the Vanguard or Rearguard Circle, you can Soul Blast 1 and Counterboss 1 and choose one of your opponent's Rearguards and retire it. And then if this card is on your Vanguard Circle, you draw a card. So obviously it's always your ideal grade 2 ride. And then when it's on the Rearguard Circle, when it attacks a Vanguard, if the number of your Rearguards is greater than your opponent's, then this unit gets plus 3,000k. Turning it into a 13k base when it attacks. So pretty good. It can attack all the clan's base numbers like Force, Excel by itself, as long as you have more Rearguards than your opponent, which most likely playing this deck you will, because you most likely will retire your opponent's entire board like a lot of times with Blademaster. So that's definitely something to be on the lookout for. Then we have 4 Dragonic Burnout. Dragonic Burnout has a Rearguard ability that's really good. Allows you to recycle while controlling your opponent's board at the same time. You basically get to counterboss 1 and put a grade 2 or greater from your drop zone onto the bottom of your deck, and you can choose one of your opponent's Rearguards and retire it. So the reason that this card is pretty good is because you're able to recycle things like Dragonic Blademaster, so that you can keep riding Blademaster and keep doing your skills, keep Soul Blasting grade 3s, etc, etc. There's nothing really that soul charges in this deck except for Garen if you hit with its skill. So if you hit with Garen and happen to soul charge grade 3, you're blessed, but it's probably not going to play out that way, so you probably just need to recycle and re-ride a lot to get off your skills. Then for our last grade 2, we have 4 Wyvern Strike Doha. Like I said when we were talking about Blademaster earlier, when this card plays from hand onto the Rearguard Circle, you can counterboss 1 to search your deck for a Garen and call it to Rearguard Circle. And then its second Rearguard ability is during the battle that it attacked. If our opponent has no Rearguards, then our opponent cannot normal call units from their hand to the guard circle. So it's pretty cool because what it means is that your opponent will not be able to guard with anything but triggers on the turn that we use Blademaster. So that's really good. It limits their hand in a way, and since this card in combination with Garen is usually only attacking for 22, then it makes a good number for them to block with triggers. But if they don't have a trigger, then they have to take it, and they're subject to on-hit skill, and they took a damage. So pretty good there. Then we run 4 Flame of Hope Aramo and 4 Sable Dragonute. These things kind of do the same thing, but they're a little different. So let's talk about them. So Aramo has 2 Rearguard abilities. The first one is during the battle that it boosted, it gets 3,000 power. So any battle that it boosts, it becomes an 11k booster, which can be really good for making good numbers on your opponent. The second Rearguard ability is when your opponent's Rearguard is retired during your turn. You can retire this unit, draw a card, and countercharge 1. So basically refunds your costs. Unfortunately, it doesn't go into the soul. It retires itself, so it doesn't build your soul, but it does countercharge for you so that you're able to use your counterblast a little more wisely. Then our Stable Dragonute does the same thing. When our opponent's Rearguard is retired during our turn, it's on Rearguard Circle. You can retire this unit and draw a card, so it's basically Aramo without the countercharge. However, it has a Vanguard ability as well, making it our ideal Vanguard ride for grade 1, which is when its attack hits, you can draw a card. So mainly when you ride a grade 1 and attack, your opponent probably won't guard, so you'll probably be able to draw a card with Sable Dragonoot, and it definitely helps you go more towards the mid-late game of getting all your pieces ready for Blademaster. Then we have 4 Wyvern Strike Garen. Wyvern Strike Garen has 2 rearguard abilities. During your turn, if your opponent has no rearguards, this unit gets plus 5,000 power, which makes this card in combination with Doha 22, which is pretty good. And then the rearguard ability of the second rearguard ability of this, the one that I was talking about that randomly soul charges, is when it attacked that it boosted Wyvern Strike Doha hit, so you can counterboss 1, draw a card, and soul charge 1. So if you happen to soul charge a grade 3, so good, so super good, but if you don't, then it's just whatever. Then we have 1 Lizard Runner Undux as our starter, pretty basic for standard starter, and then we have 8 crit, 4 draw, and 4 heal. So not much to say about that, basically your typical lineup of triggers, but let's get right into the games here. So we have Blademaster 1 that we're loading up. So first we're playing against D Police. We ride Sable Dragonoot because we go first. Unfortunately, it's kind of not ideal for us to go first because we do want to use the skill to draw a card off of our grade 1. But our opponent rides and then attacks us. So we're using Force 2. We use the Cardi B Dragon to Soul Blast 1 and look at the top for a Blademaster that we did get. And we also drove check 2 more grade 3s. So we're pretty set as far as like rewriting for the rest of the game, I think. So then our opponent rides Dayusha, makes all his cards super big, and uses Commander Laurel. So he's able to get 3 crit. We do take 3 damage, but we get a heal. So because he committed so hard, we're able to destroy his whole board, which definitely takes a lot away from him. He no guards the vision token, we get a draw trigger, so we did plus there. And then he guards our Vanguard because we had the Force 2, and he also guards our rear guard. So he re-rides, which I wasn't really a fan of him doing, but you know, I guess he did what he had to do to try to survive. But he no guards our vision token, and then he guards Vanguard, but he is not able to guard the last rear guard attack, which makes the game end. So Force 2 is definitely very, very good in Blademaster. Definitely helps you control your opponent a lot more than Force 1 would, because you're not able to force them into as many bad situations with Force 1. Then playing game 2, we're playing against we're playing against D Police again. This time we do go second, so we're able to get Dragonoot off and draw a card. So he rides and he just ends turn, I'm guessing because he doesn't want to give us a counterboss to use Berserk Dragon to plus more, which doesn't really matter to us per se, because he just didn't attack us, so he's not plussing either, which I don't know how good of a idea that was to do that, but you know, he did it. So we do take 3 damage from his 1 Vanguard attack. So we use Berserk Dragon to pop his front row. We draw and we soul charge. We get a heal, so we heal back down, and then we attack. And he has 2 Great Dayusha in his hand. So we're actually pretty scared. I don't know why he attacked with his rear guards first. Seems kind of pointless, but we 2'd past him, and then he rode Great Dayusha and attacks with Great Dayusha, and I just no guard this one. I take 1 damage. It's a draw trigger. I draw. Again, he committed, so I'm able to use Blademaster skill, and then I'm able to use the on-hit skill of Doha as well, or sorry, of Garen. And then he guards all my stuff. He re-rides into regular Dayusha, which I'm able to PG easily. And then I'm able to use Blademaster again. And then I attack him for 22, which he cannot handle because he has 3 grade 3s in his hand and 1 grade 1. So either way, he would have to take this with 2 crit, my Vanguards with 3 crit, and then my rearguard vision token with 2 crit, but then I might check a crit. So it was probably the safest option to take the first attack. But loading our last Blademaster game here, which would be Blademaster game 3, we're actually playing against Kagero. I assume this is a Dragonic Overlord variant. He attacks us and we guard the the first turn attack because we don't want to deal with all that. Or actually, we don't guard it. We take it just so that we can use Berserk Dragon. So our opponent attacks us, and it's pretty interesting. He's running a Spillover Dragon. It's kind of a older card to use, but he no guards and he takes 3 damage from our Vanguard, being forced to and checking a crit. So that's another like point that I mentioned about force 2 just being so good. But he actually double crits us with Dragonic Overlord, so we take a good amount of damage there because he does force 2 and then he double crits us. So it's a draw trigger. I can only one to pass him with the hopes of surviving, and then he checks another trigger on top of that and puts it on Dragonic Overlord. So it has 5 crit, and I just like took it all basically. So the only way that we are going to survive his turn is if we one to pass that, and then if we guarded the rear guard attacks with some of our grade 2s in our hand, because our hand's not very ideal for guarding. So there was no point to like overguard there, because if he got a crit trigger anyways, he was just gonna put it on the Spillover Dragon column, and then yeah, there wasn't gonna be much that we could do about that. However, if he didn't get that one to pass, we're able to guard and survive, and then he uses Spillover skill, probably destroys our Garen, so that we would need a Doha to use Blademaster skill with Garen and stuff like that. But yeah, that has been the last game for the Blademaster Future Fight. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, be sure to leave a thumbs up on the video. Helps a lot more than you guys might think. Be sure to comment down below letting me know what you thought of the Blademaster deck, and will you be building this deck? What's your favorite thing about this deck? What more decks do you want to see in the future? And definitely be sure to check out the Patreon for the premium content related to this, or whatnot, or what have you. But you guys have an amazing day. This has been Josh from Cardfight Empire, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace, guys.